Good evening, I'm Atik Rumi bringing you your Gold FM News Roundup. Another foreign envoy highlighted how perennial problems in Sri Lanka can affect the island nation's investment climate. He also explained how the rise in Sri Lankan tea prices can have a negative impact on the bilateral relations with his country. These thoughts were expressed by Ambassador of Turkey to Sri Lanka, Dr. Semih Lüftü Turgut, as he addressed a roundtable discussion in Colombo organized by the Pathfinder Foundation. Among the number of issues, both local and global, discussed during the event, the Turkish envoy highlighted how tensions in the Middle East could impact the island nation. He said that the Middle East, which has long regarded as a focal point of global instability, is important for Sri Lanka due to thousands of workers being employed over there and the existence of close commercial and trade relations. He also commented on some of the areas that Turkey and Sri Lanka can collaborate on, with tourism being one such area, as the arrivals of Turkish tourists to the island are continuing to increase. The ambassador also said that both countries can collaborate on textiles and electronics. However, he expressed concern about the tea trade, the main item in the bilateral trade between the two countries. Dr. Turgut highlighted that Sri Lankan tea becoming more expensive and the markets of the island nation being captured by Kenya will have a negative impact on the bilateral trade. Finally, the Turkish ambassador Dr. Semih Lüftü Turgut commented on Sri Lanka's investment climate. He said that the Sri Lankan market is small in comparison to other regional countries. Secondly, he said that the bureaucracy is complex and time-consuming. Most importantly, he highlighted the lack of skilled workers due to their migration. The Turkish envoy warned that there could be problems in terms of labor in Sri Lanka due to this issue. Sri Lanka needs to ensure its population pays for the provided services while the government learns to distinguish between productive and unproductive capital. Dr. Arvind Subramanian, a former chief economic advisor to the government of India, shared these insights during a lecture titled Reviving Growth While Maintaining Stability at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. He emphasized that increasing the tax to GDP ratio is essential for the island's economic health.
If you're in crises, depending on the IMF is not a bad thing because you may have differences, but it's a reasonably respected institution. The point is, how do you not get into the stress in the first place? The two manifestations are budget deficits are too high and foreign borrowing is too high. These are two kind of proximate manifestations of that. To some extent, foreign borrowing is also high because domestic resource mobilization is somewhat weak, and that's why you have to depend upon foreign savings. So to me, unless Sri Lanka can get its tax to GDP ratio, get people to paying for the services that they get, raising domestic savings, raising domestic resources, I think that's going to be pretty much a prerequisite for avoiding a crisis going forward.
The economist also addressed the structure of the private sector, specifically regarding small and medium-sized enterprises. Dr. Subramanian argued that Sri Lanka lacks a sufficient number of large-scale businesses with the capacity to integrate and elevate smaller firms within the supply chain.
I say in India, the problem is not the missing middle. A big informal sector is the problem. But people in India harp on the fact that there are too many small firms. The problem in India is not that there are too many small firms or there's a missing middle, but there are not enough large firms. Because it's the large firms that are able to export because you have to be competitive, like the Foxcons of the world. And it's being tied to this supply chain based on the large firm that allows the smaller firms to kind of exit informality as well. Why is it that China and Vietnam have much lower levels of informality? Is because they have firms that are exporting at scale, and that kind of pulls up the small and medium enterprise sector as well. So the lesson for Sri Lanka also is, now I am not sure whether Sri Lanka can be as competitive in manufacturing as say Vietnam or Bangladesh, but if you did want to become competitive and globally exporting, you would have to try and attain scale in your companies, because then they can pull up the small and medium enterprises as well.
Furthermore, he provided guidance on the nature of capital, advising the nation on how to manage investments effectively for long-term stability.
There are capital and terrible forms of foreign capital. Relatively good form is if you get FDI. Sri Lanka is not getting enough, it's declining. So you need more of the good foreign capital and less of the worst form of foreign capital is foreign currency denominated debt. And this is a lesson from all financial crises. Foreign borrowing is bad, foreign currency borrowing is the worst. Remember, in East Asia, the same thing happened. When the currency depreciates, all that foreign currency denominated borrowing, you have to then sacrifice much more to repay those debts. If you have a number of investments that you have in mind that you think are necessary and they need to be financed, maybe some borrowing is inevitable. But as a cautious finance minister who worries about instability, at the margin, I would rely less on debt, especially foreign currency denominated debt going forward. So you raise the tax to GDP, borrow less, and then maybe you will liberate yourselves from the International Monetary Fund.
A fact-finding mission from the International Monetary Fund arrived on the island to evaluate the economic devastation caused by Cyclone Ditwa. This was confirmed to us by the Global Lenders resident representative in Colombo. The delegation will conduct an on-site evaluation of the damage to infrastructure, livelihoods and overall economic stability. The findings are expected to be critical for the resumption of the $2.9 billion extended fund facility, which remains on hold following the cyclone in late November. Indictments have been filed in the Colombo High Court against former Minister Arjuna Ranatunga and his brother Dhammika Ranatunga. They were filed for allegedly causing losses of around 800 million rupees to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. This is informed by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption to the Colombo Chief Magistrate when the case against the duo was heard today. The Bribery Commission alleges that the loss was incurred through the procurement of petroleum via spot tenders at significantly inflated prices during the tenures of the suspects. The Supreme Court concluded its examination of petitions challenging the Parliamentary Pensions Repeal Bill. This legislation aims to abolish pension rights for members of Parliament and their spouses, a move that several former lawmakers contest as unconstitutional. A three-judge bench, led by the Chief Justice, heard arguments from legal representatives of the retired members who claim the bill violates fundamental rights. The court's confidential determination on whether the bill requires a two-thirds majority or a public referendum will reach the Speaker of Parliament in the coming days. The Government Medical Officers Association will launch an island-wide 48-hour token strike at 8 a.m. tomorrow. They say that this is due to the government's failure to provide solutions to persistent grievances. Ten youths were arrested in Matale town for allegedly engaging in illegal high-speed motorcycle races. The All-Share Price Index of the Colombo Stock Exchange reached another all-time closing high of 23,813.77 after gaining 7.45 points today. The S&P SL 20 Index, however, declined by 1.47 points to end at 6,617.85. Market turnover was 8.3 billion rupees. US President Donald Trump launched his Board of Peace today to cement the Gaza ceasefire, securing commitments from regional powers including Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Qatar. He stated that the body will work with the United Nations to address wider global challenges. The US Federal Communications Commission warned that late-night and daytime talk shows may no longer qualify for news exemptions, potentially forcing them to grant equal airtime to opposing political candidates. Commissioner Ana Gomez slammed the move as government intimidation and an attempt to censor speech ahead of the upcoming elections. Bangladesh remains firm that it will not play T20 World Cup matches in India due to security concerns, despite an ICC warning that they will be replaced. Sports advisor Asif Nazrul confirmed the government decision today, citing the recent removal of Mustafizur Rahman from the IPL as proof of a real threat. The team now risks missing the tournament, which begins on the 7th of February, after the ICC rejected their request to move games to Sri Lanka. The first ODI between Sri Lanka and England is currently underway at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo. Chasing a target of 271 runs, England is at 146 runs for the loss of 3 wickets in 34 overs. That's it for the news. I'm Atik Rumi. Have a great evening.